Hello. How you doing,
Yo,
Vaush?
what's up?
Not much. And it's really good to be with you again.
Yeah.
It's a good Saturday. We
Hmm.
went to a birthday party for my daughter and her friends. It's just wonderful. They jumped on trampolines.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, I'm glad that we can take a brief break from the depressing topic of climate change to move into the uplifting and spiritually nourishing topic of the 2024 election cycle.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely here for the positive vibes at the end of the world. I'm buying into that whole framing.
Yeah. We're trying our best. Hey, this is Sam with Progressive Victory. He was on
Hey,
quite recently. Now he's on again. It turns out Summerlee won, but there's more work to do.
indeed, indeed, and I'm here to report back partly on the work that you all did on the Summer League campaign. So we got in just a few events. We got 180 signups and made almost 10,000 calls. And then she won with 60% of the vote. So there you go. That's
Yeah,
democracy in action, baby.
that's pretty good. I gotta
Yes,
say,
indeed.
and I think we can safely attribute literally all of that to the hard work of my community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely VGG is responsible for at least 1,000% of the 100% of the calls made.
I know they know that, but I appreciate you reminding them anyway.
No,
I hear rumors that there might be more on the horizon.
there is more. I mean, we're in the middle of an election cycle, right? And there's stuff happening all the time. And I think one of the things that has has really propelled me into investing so much of my time and effort into Progressive Victory is just how many people I've met through the work that we're doing who felt like a little bit lost or depressed or isolated and have found a lot of meaning and friendship and positive, like real positive vibes that come out of engaging directly in democracy.
Yeah, like I've said many times, and I'm glad it continues to be the case because eventually it won't be, just statistically speaking. But so far, everyone who's messaged me to say that they've done phone banking or canvassing or anything of the sort has reported back and said that it was a very positive experience. One of these days, somebody's going to trip down some stairs or stub their toe, and I'll get a negative report. But for now, for years now, it's been all positive.
Well, I've been wanting to ask. I've been on your streams, many times now actually at this point, and I've never actually gotten to ask you how did you get interested in politics for the first time?
Oh, I had a really good when I was in high school, there was a professor. He was really good. He was young. He was very attractive, which I found compelling on an intellectual level. It was I was in AP comparative government class, and it was basically like here's the like very basic executive, legislative, and judicial functions of 6 different countries. I think it was America, Britain, Germany, China, Iran, and Russia, I think. It might not have been Germany. It could have been Brazil, actually. I think it was Brazil, not Germany. And it was basically like, okay, so like governments run basically the same way no matter what, because there are basic functions a government has to do no matter what in the modern world. So this is like all the different ways in which they function with all these little differences. But can you see how, in spite of all that, there's the same like underlying patterns, And I liked it a lot. I enjoyed the class. So I decided to sort of like not go into college for the hard sciences and rather go in for the social sciences. And then I went into poli-sci and hated all the people in my classes, so I switched to sociology.
What were the people in the policy classes like?
I think they had a lot of like, I don't know, it seemed like a lot of people there just wanted to feel like kind of smart and above it all. There's not much in the way of like prescription in the poli-sci classes. They talk about how the world is, but not how it should be. The sociology types tend to be a lot more activism minded, which I thought was pretty cool.
Right, right. Yeah, I was a political science person, and I was definitely smelling my own farts. So I get that. That was me, basically, is what you're describing.
Well, we all have our phase.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's not like the classes were bad or anything. It just gave me the impression that like the end state of those jobs was to end up working for the U.S. State Department in the best possible case, kind of like nodding along with whatever happens. Whereas a lot of the sociology majors went on to like, I don't know, tip over trash cans and bring about real change like that. So
Right. Well, yeah, and there's something to be said for, are you getting involved in quote unquote public service, but really it's in service of your ego? Or are you there to invest in strengthening your sense of self and your ego and your self-knowledge so that you can lasso that energy that you bring to the world to something that's actually important outside of yourself? And there's a big dividing line about that in politics. I mean, that's a big dividing line right now in both parties, I think. Though, of course, on the right, the way that those who are true believers, they're a little off the wall. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a dividing line in how I see a lot of people in the world today.
I think the dividing line fundamentally is there are people who think that the world is the way it is because it is the way it is, and they just want to be somewhere nearer to the top of that existing hierarchy. And there are people who are sort of propelled by some sense of injustice. Of course, a lot of the people who are propelled by a sense of injustice also want terrible outcomes. I think that the far right, for example, is definitely not just, the way things are is the way things are. So that's not necessarily good. I just think it's a more motivated way of engaging in political action.
Right. There's the world's obviously unjust the way it is, and let's dive deeper into the fear. And in fact, let's come to rely even more on institutions that were already unfair to begin with, and dive right back into that. Or we can try something else. Whichever you like.
Yeah, like doing politics online. Where it's really breaking new ground.
Exactly, and I think so. I've been working in politics for over 20 years now, actually. And I have never, ever found, I mean, obviously I'm hugely invested in Progressive Victory specifically, because that's the organization that I've founded in this space. But I actually think that the streaming space itself, especially on the left, is a huge, it's a huge deal. I mean, that it exists. I spent most of my time in my 20s working on campaigns using social media. I was Instagram got really, really big when I was in my mid 20s, late 20s. And it was I'm like a millennial, older millennial. So when that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is what we're all going to be doing. This is how we're going to be organizing. And then, lo and behold, the platforms all, they shaped their tools in a direction that made it impossible to do anything constructive on them. And it's just about eyeballs and advertisements and clicks, right? And the thing that I think is really amazing right now, specifically in the streaming space, is that you streamers actually have, number one, an actual bond with your audience that goes beyond just flicking past a video on TikTok when you you see a video, you watch it, and you go to the next video, right? No, you all actually have a real connection to your audience. They identify with you, and you have real communities that are built off of your, the way that you look at the world. That lens is powerful, and you can actually direct people to action in a way that, an Instagram influencer or someone on Twitter or TikTok probably couldn't. So it's a huge deal that this pipeline of young people into public discourse exists, and it needs to, regardless of, I hope that PV continues forever, but the thing that I really want to make sure happens is that young people continue to find their way into politics from here, because otherwise we're not going to be able to hold democracy together. I think this is actually the key to holding democracy together long term.
Yeah, I think in a way I don't want to gas it up too much, obviously, because, I don't want to come across conceited, but I do think to a large extent it's at least an element of something that used to direct political action a lot more aggressively, which was before the internet and before sort of mass media and television. People were a lot more reliant on local communities, and a lot of local political causes were directed locally from the church or from whatever community org you were in the vicinity of. And it's a much more engaged way of being involved than sort of just following a national election and just kind of tuning in for the vote and not much else, And I think that was really the more and more so the way people engaged with political action from the 70s and onward, as TV became a more popular mean of getting your news, and people relied on like,
Yep.
the community element kind of died down a bit. And I don't think that streaming like is a fix to that or anything. Obviously, it's still
No.
a relatively atomized way of engaging with people, but it is nice to be able to direct people with some kind of like immediate back and forth enthusiasm.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, we're in the middle of a national election right now, so there's a lot going on. But I think that you're right that it's important that the type of civic engagement we're talking about continue, not when there's not elections, right? But right now, elections are hot, so let's talk about it, right? Tonight, PV has a very special event. I want to tell you all about it.
Hit me.
Those of you who haven't been to PV before, or you have, but you maybe haven't been back in a while, we are having a very dynamic community night. We're having a large group of activities that are all happening around the same time. We're going to have a debate corner where there's going to be people can get debate practice with an actual moderator there to adjudicate and judge the participants. And you can choose between such illuminating topics as is water wet, is a hot dog a sandwich. Those are some examples that we're going to be
fun, real
you can
life.
Also pick your own prompt.
Applicable stuff like this, yes.
Yes. We're going to have a VC where people are going to be doing show and tell with their pets. You can show off your fur babies, plant babies, anything that depends on your effort to maintain its existence. Its existence is fair game. We're going to be doing an arts server, an arts VC, and we're going to be playing Jackbox and other video games together. And so we're going to be using basically all the VCs in our server, in our Discord server, to do this. And it's all to, obviously, we want the warm fuzzies there. We want everybody to hang out. If those of you who don't have anything going on tonight, don't have any major plans, come join in and have fun with us and with other progressives who are interested in politics. But also, it's to kick off our big phone banking this weekend.
There's work involved. It couldn't all be good, huh?
Well, we make work fun. I mean, I think there's something to be said here. I think a lot of people miss what phone banking is, and they misunderstand it and think it's a lot harder than it actually is. So, first of all, phone banking can be done from your house or on your computer, in a browser app. It doesn't use your phone number, so you no one's going to have your phone number. You don't have to go anywhere to do it. And also, when you call, you're only calling Democrats. This is basically an identification operation. We're trying to find for other candidates, for the candidates that we're working with, we're trying to find out who their supporters are in their district and identify them so that we know who to turn out when the election gets closer. And every call you make makes a difference. It's not just the people you talk to. So even if you don't confirm someone's vote during their shift, you still help, because all the wrong numbers and bad connections and opposing voters that somehow make it through the data screen are taken off the list for the campaign. And this saves the campaign time, because it helps out for the next phone banking volunteer, because they're not going to have to call the person that you eliminated from the list.
Yeah, and you can get a remarkable amount done very quickly. It's an incredibly efficient way of reaching people, which is good for feeling good afterwards too, I feel. But yeah, no negative experiences reported of yet. I know that a great many calls were made from the community for Summer Lee, and I would hope that people could be so mobilized this time as well. Who are we phone banking for?
We're phone banking for Angela Alsobrook. She's running for Senate in Maryland, and she's endorsed by a bunch of progressives like Maxwell Frost and Barbara Lee, Jamie Raskin. She's got a career of public service as opposed to being like a business person who's colonizing the political space. She, as a county attorney, she established a unit to investigate police misconduct. And she's not a self-funder. She's not a rich person, like I said, like colonizing the race. But she's running against someone named David Trone.
Yeah, that guy's backed by a lot of money, right?
Yeah, he's backed by, he's a self-funder. He's 98% of his campaign funding comes from his own pockets.
That's not good.
And he's endorsed. Sorry, say that again.
Oh, just that's not good. That means he's very wealthy.
Right, and he's also, his company is under investigation right now, so it's not necessarily even well-gotten money, right? Like, I don't know if you are familiar with a senator from Florida who was the governor there before. I forget his name. Actually, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he like made all of his money off of cheating Medicare out of money, like Medicare fraud. Was caught, paid a ton of fines, but still retained enough of that wealth that he got by defrauding Medicare to run for governor and then Senate. And that's now he's like a sitting Republican senator in Florida. Like crazy corrupt stuff that can happen. And this guy David Trone is like he's endorsed by the Maryland Fraternal Order of Police, and he's 98% self-funder, and his business is under investigation right now. So we're gonna get behind Alsobrooks.
Yeah, I took a look when I said earlier, who are we supporting with phone banking? See, that was a rhetorical ploy. I actually knew the answer because we talked about it. Yeah, the individual who we are also it feels like a fake name, Alsobrooks. But I know. Yeah. As I understand it, like she seems to be pretty good in the issues. I sort of like a preeminent disclaimer because I did want to look into it. She's been pretty like doesn't want to dip the toe in the water on the Israel-Palestine issue. So I thought okay, so who would I support then? And then I look up the opposition, and he's Giga Hitler. He was like fuck. I read a thing from him. It was on It was he was promoting he's like an active supporter of anti-BDS laws. Like not even just he lets it happen, but he's been like advocating for the government to make it illegal to divest from Israel or protest against them. So we're kind of operating in the classical like Hitler percentage level here, but also Brooks, as far as I can tell, is a pretty damn good candidate. You know, I don't want to let like the single issue vote thing get in the way of a solid preference.
Right. And Trone, I mean, like I mentioned before, he's 98% self-funded. Of the 2% that's not self-funded, 105,000 comes from AIPAC directly. So
nice. Well, no doubt more would if he wasn't paying for himself so
exactly
extensively. Yeah.
Okay. So if you all want to sign up, you should go to progress.win/alsobrooks. Progress.win/alsobrooks.
I'm going to type that because that's easy to type. That's the whole point. And also Brooks is incredibly easy to remember how it's spelled because I mistyped it. I added a little apostrophe, but it didn't fuck it up. Nice. You're going to give it to me. You're going to
I just put it into the Discord.
Yeah. You're going to help me out with this tough one. Okay, there we go. There. I got, and now it has the HTTPS, which makes it look more official. Thank you.
Yes, we have 2 solid weekends to phone bank for her. So we're kicking it off tonight. And by the way, the phone banking is also a party. I mean, I don't know if any of you who in the chat who've done phone banking with us chime in, because we do it on Zoom. We like when we have good calls, we like tell each other in the chat about it. Afterward, we go and play games. So it's a fun time anyway. And then we're adding in all this community night. Our new community manager, CJ, has been building this event for a while. He's awesome. Anybody who gets to know him, he's a wonderful person. Again,
like exclusively positive experiences here. You know, I've got a lot of whiners in my community too. These people are difficult to deal with. So if anything, you think, well, you know what I think it is? I think some people are going to whine no matter what. I think the whiners are the people who don't go and try it in the first place. You know, I think the whiners are do-nothings. And they would rather sit in the sidelines and whine, whereas the people who are willing to get involved, to get invested, to put a bit of effort in, you know, and to feel good about that are the ones who are likely to come away with a positive experience. You know, I think we're kind of running into like a cyclical effect here, where good things are good and bad things are bad. You know, I want people who are watching right now or in the future when this video is released to try it seriously. You know, we're kind of down the barrel here on this one. I admit to not being particularly optimistic about the general political state of affairs here in America, you know, especially with Joe Biden's recent Hitlerian tendencies, I should say. But you know, first of all, as I've always said, the math remains consistent, right? You know, good things are good, bad things are bad. There are always better options. And if you cede control of the sort of like reins to power, the worst people will make these choices for you. You'll wake up and you'll find that every state rep, every senator, you know, everyone at every level is like the worst possible option. And it will be a worse world than one which you had tried.
Yeah, I want to just give some perspective because I think that it's important to like really think about this. people in your audience are probably under the age of 40. I'm willing to bet.
Probably, yeah.
And I just think that we all need to realize that the world doesn't end when bad things happen. Like if there's a giant loss here in this election or in any major election, if there's a big failure and democracy is under threat, that doesn't mean the end of history. We still all have to continue living. And so that's why I think that it's really important to think about not necessarily even the candidates that you're working for, but just the idea of taking responsibility for the political system in this country and democracy. And that's not an easy ask to make of a lot of people, but those of you who are watching Vaush right now, you are some of the most informed people, young people in the country. We did a survey in 2022 through the message testing that we did. I don't know if any of you remember the ads that we developed together that were meant for young people in the 2022 elections. You guys basically turned yourself into a focus group with Vaush, and he came up with some messages that tested really, really well in an online survey. And in that same online survey, we asked people just a question: do you watch on a regular basis online content creators on YouTube and Twitch? And regardless of whether they saw any of our messages, the people who said yes to that question were 18% more likely to express interest in voting in the midterms than people who said no.
Which means we're smarter than the entire Democratic Party apparatus.
I don't know about comparing you to the entire apparatus. All I'm saying is that the people in this audience are some of the most informed and engaged people, young people in the country. And that's why it's so important that you all take responsibility and do with it what you will, right? Like, taking responsibility means you get to decide. And you won't get to decide immediately, because the party is still run by a lot of older people who still haven't, decided to retire yet. But the more that the thing that leads to victory in politics is actually just staying power. It's being willing to do it over and over and over and over again. And I got to stick up and talk about Joe Biden here because you mentioned him. I understand what you're saying, and also what you were talking about before about single issue voting. Joe Biden is the candidate that we have right now for president, and I think he's done a good job overall in pursuing most of the policies that he's done as president. This is the way that I've come to think of this, right? Like, there's an older group of people who work in politics who think of things in terms of TV ads. And the way you do with TV ads is you raise as much money as you can from rich people, and then you hold it in reserve for the last month of the campaign, and then you pile all those millions of dollars into TV ads. And that's just not the way that the internet works for politics. The way the internet works for politics is every fight, you max it out, because every fight is the capacity test that you need to run to grow your power for the next fight. And so that's what this election is. It's supporting a candidate who's done, on balance, a really amazing job as president, given the realities of what he's been dealing with, and also his history as a candidate before he got into office, and his historical perspective on all these issues. And it's also the capacity test that's building for the next election, and the election after that, and the election after that. And the more that we can build our power in our own spaces, like Progressive Victory, the more that we can then dictate to the party who needs our labor, this is what we're going to do. This is the direction we need. This is the agenda that we need to set in order to keep us engaged. Yeah, well, and that's the opportunity right now.
At the end of the day, like, all political engagement is just Hitlerian compromises, really. As you said, when bad things happen, it's not the end of politics. The left survived 2 terms of W, the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, indignity after indignity. The Supreme Court handing the victory to him over Gore. Obviously that all of this persists, and it's always important to sort of frame your advocacy in the context of that historical moment, which is one of the reasons why, in spite of how bad everything has been, Biden winning better than Trump, we all kind of have the implicit gun pointed to our heads. We all know how much worse this could potentially be. you know, it's one of the reasons also, and you know, people often say, especially people on the left, voting isn't the whole thing. That is true, and that is so clearly evidenced by all of these campus protests as well, because we're seeing like these massive sort of like presses to the pressure points of power, you know, masks revealed, you know, people mobilized in a distinctly non-electoral fashion. It's a reminder that pressure can be applied even in like in electoral or like outside of an electoral space, and obviously that pressure is being felt considering how violently everybody's been reacting to it. So I do think there's still plenty of work to be done. You know, there's never really an excuse to give up on the work.
All right. Well, on that note, there is no excuse to give up the work because this is the election year, and this is the moment that we can make a difference. And if we don't right now, then there's going to be a whole lot of really negative knock-on effects that come for years and years. And that's the only reason why I'm doing this work, is because I have a long history of working in politics, and I'm dissatisfied with where we are. And I want to try to empower as many young people to get the opportunities that I didn't when I was younger, to get yourself in the position where you have enough power that you can start making policy, and making it with a group of people who agree with you and share a similar identity. That's the way to power. And so if you want to join PV, especially for this community night, and you can just come in and see what other people show up, see if you get along with the progressives near you or across the country. You can go to progress.win, https://progress.win. And if you want to just go ahead and sign up for the phone banks, it's progress.win/also-pros.
I think they can manage that. Those are pretty memorable URLs, but we'll be sure to help them in the description of the video as well.
Yeah, and look, I'm an older guy, but I've met a lot of really, really cool people who are already way smarter than I was and are absolutely killing it. And I think you all would like to meet them too. So progress.win. Do it.
I appreciate you coming on, man.
Oh, thank you. And it was a good conversation. I'd love to come on again soon.
Yeah. I'd like that, and I think you'll probably have a good reason to pretty soon. You know, a lot of work to do.
That's right, lots of work to do.
Have a wonderful. All right,
have a great Saturday, everybody.
Yeah, everyone. Wait, not everyone. I'm not leaving. You have a good day. You almost. I thought I was done for a second. What a wonderful world I was briefly in. Take care. Okay.
All right, have a good night.
Bye.